All right. I always love that live red timer at the top of the screen. It lets you know that you are on. So here we are once again on the cusp. Yes, my dog just came in from her walk. Once again, episode number 5, where we have real talk with real people about real life. It is ultimately the guest show. I'm just here to hopefully ask some smart questions. And on the cusp, we're always trying to boldly go where the human condition hasn't gone before, and always exploring the best version of ourselves. And of course, we're leaving the audience with, hopefully some new tools and fuel on potentially going to work on their dreams and aspirations. So for those of you tuning in, thank you once again for taking a peek and looking at what we're trying to achieve here on the cusp, which is building a community of like-minded people where we can have just some good, healthy conversation. And it's real life, right? Nothing is perfect. We do stumble. We make a straight line crooked. And, hopefully we can, get some ideas and perspective on how to always chase that better version of ourselves. So we have Mr. Mickey Mikkelson today on our show. How do we know each other? I always try to give some context to how we know each other. And of course, probably going to be some laughs from Mickey. So Mickey and I worked together in a previous lifetime, in a previous gig. And, fortunately, we moved on to bigger and better things. And so in my role that I had, I was looking over or responsible for a territory across Canada in sales. And Mickey was taking care of the Saskatchewan region. And early on, I had an opportunity to spend some time with everybody on the team. So I remember getting on a plane and going to spend some quality time and meeting, some of our accounts and getting to know Mickey and seeing how we could work together in order to, reach those sales goals that were put in front of us. So we ended up having a lot of windshield time. And I remember I had to get used to the idea we would go meet with an account, and then we get back in the car, and then Mickey would say, okay, well, our next account's 4 hours away. And I'd be like, for reals? 4 hours away? I'm like, okay. So, you'd loosen off the tie. We sit in the car. We got to know each other pretty quick, became fast friends. And much of our conversation would be around music, Major League Baseball, books, of course, comics, and of course, Wonder Woman. We just, your favorite topic, right? Wonder Woman. Anyway, I had to throw that in there because I remember the chats about Wonder Woman. So, you get to spend a lot of time with someone. You get to talk about life. And that's what I really appreciated with my time with you, Mickey, is nothing that was, let's say, really off limits. And they were always candid and open conversations. So we get to this event, a Bonspiel in Saskatchewan. They're curling there. And it was a social account event in Nipawin. And for those who don't know where Nipawin, Saskatchewan is, it's close. And you may correct me if I'm wrong, but it is close to where that unfortunate Humboldt Broncos tragedy happened. Got to drive through that intersection a couple of times after, and those are moments that make it very, very real. But back to some lighter stuff. So we're at this event, we're bonspieling, we're having drinks, we're having a good time. Now, before I had gone out to meet Mickey, I booked my flights in such a way, and in my flight to return from Saskatoon, right, Mickey? I was flying out of Saskatoon, right?
Yeah.
Was approximately close to 4 or 5 hours away, but it was a 6 a.m. flight. So I remember bringing that up to Mickey. Mickey's like, as we were driving out to Nipawin for this thing, and the next day he's like, it's 4 hours away, or almost 5. And of course, the weather wasn't great. You had those wonderful blustery winter days. So I was like, oh, okay, so that'll be fun. So, having drinks and having fun. And there was this little event where you could win a prize where you took a frozen chicken. It was called a chicken chuck. And I was like a fish out of water. I'm like, I don't know what happens here in the prairies, but I'm liking it. It's fun. And, if you were a person who got it closest to the button inside the curling house, I think is what they call it, then you want a gift card. So had some fun getting to know Mickey in those ways. And I told Mickey, I said, seeing as we have to be at the airport for a 6 a.m. flight, I said, I will go to bed. You have some fun. And we will be leaving promptly at 12:30, 12:45 in the morning. So we get in the car. Mickey reclines his seat in a flat position. I think he slept most of the way or all the way. I got us there in about 3.5 hours. in time for me to catch my flight to Saskatoon and left Mickey with no gas in the tank. That's what friends do, right?
At 4 a.m., not in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, at 4 a.m.
And it was literally on fumes, and there were no gas stations open at the time. And I remember hugging Mickey at the airport, saying, "Thanks, buddy, for a great time. That was awesome." And said, "Good luck finding a gas station, and hopefully you get home safe." Anyway, a little preamble, and there's a lot more fun that happened after the fact. So just for the viewing audience, so you know how Mickey and I, got off to a great start, because it's all about having fun and laughs. So we're getting to talk about books, and this will be the last piece that I do before it becomes you get to take the helm here, Mickey. I was so jazzed about us doing the show together. I'm an ardent fan of books, have been from a very young age. And books allow you to escape depending on the genre that you love. And whether it's, fantasy, or even if it's just, nonfiction, it allows you, I gravitated more towards like the self-help books and the development books and whatnot, but I could lose myself in books. I could permit myself to be honest, because books are non-threatening. They allow you to be alone with your own thoughts and feelings and your imagination. And I was like, damn, I can't wait to do this show with Mr. Mickelson. So that being said, for those of you watching, I turn it over to Mr. Mickelson from Creative Edge, and it's yours.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for keeping in touch with me after the dysfunction at the junction where we were before in the previous life. So
yes,
I just want to say thanks for that. And hi, everybody. I'm Mickey Mikkelson. I'm the owner of Creative Edge Publicity. We're a independent publicity firm representing multiple authors in both traditional and independent spaces on a worldwide basis. Last count, we have represented over 80 clients worldwide, with 2 New York Times bestsellers, 6 USA Today bestsellers, multiple international bestsellers in virtually all genres, including nonfiction. We represent a couple of musicians as well as a couple of established comic book writers, hence the comic books behind me. So this is my passion. Publicity is my passion. First 4 years in business, started in 2016. First 4 years was doing it part-time while working full-time with Steph, as he knows. And made the adjustment in 2019 September to go full-time, and just growing from there. And it's been a wild ride overall. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, that's fascinating that, we talk about what we do on the side, our hobbies, what we tinker with, what we're truly passionate about, all the while we're holding down a full-time gig and a full-time job. And then, I always say, if everybody could be doing what they absolutely love, then it'd be just a perfect world, wouldn't it? And that's part of what On the Cusp is. Like, we're on the cusp of, maybe finally just making that leap of faith. And sometimes we get nudged in making that leap. We get pushed, and it's like sink or swim. And, and you just turn it, your business into a full-time thing, and obviously a great success. And I've been following closely. Now the logo, your icon, the puzzle piece, you shared with me kind of how that was born and how it came to be. So maybe you can share that with the audience, because I think that's significant.
Absolutely. So when I started this company in March of 2016, I wanted it to be something different. There's lots of publicists out there representing the book world, both from the traditional standpoint with all the big 4 book companies, but there's also independent publicists out there. And I wanted to do something different. And my daughter, who's now 14, her name is Ezra, and she's high functioning autistic. And we were sitting down trying to figure out a name for this company and what to do and how to do it. And she was like, Dad, it's about connections. So you should set up a company like Author's Edge or Creative Edge or something. So we called it Creative Edge. But she brought up the idea of connection, bringing people together, both from a media standpoint and from an author standpoint, and from a relationship standpoint. And so she identified the idea of two puzzle pieces connecting together. Well, one of those puzzle pieces of my logo, I don't know if you have it, but one of those puzzle pieces of my logo is blue to represent autism. And if there's one thing that we're all about from a support standpoint, Creative Edge is a huge advocate of autism itself because, well, number one, my daughter's autistic, and it's just such a misled and informed aspect of what autistic people are. Like a lot of people who aren't autistic don't seem to understand how autistic people think and feel. And so I really wanted to incorporate the puzzle pieces into the company, both from a connection standpoint, but live by the relationship standpoint as well, which is why we've been so successful as a company. Because we live by the relationship standpoint, and it's paid dividends.
And perfectly said. And that's why, you and I understood each other quite well. And the show is all about having people who are cut of the same cloth. And you bring up themes for me that are my mantras, which is, relationships and what they mean and the work that they require to build them and cultivate them and keep them healthy and whole. And how old was Ezra when she came up with that idea for Creative Edge, the logo? That's a little bit a while ago, isn't it?
Yeah. So we've been in business for, well, just over five years, I think. I'm bad at math, but so I would have said she's probably 9.
So she was 9 years old when she understood those themes. She understood the value of strong connections and strong relationships, and that piece that you play, we'll get a little bit deeper into that, in helping authors put those necessary pieces together for them to be successful in promoting and creating awareness of their projects and their craft and what they're authoring. So I find that remarkable. She's definitely ahead of the curve, I think, somewhat.
Yeah, she's been fully ingrained, actually. I mean, she doesn't take an active daily interest in this, but sometimes when I've had authors whose birthdays come up or Christmas come up, she's made little happy birthday videos and sung happy birthday to them, holding their books up. And I send them off as a thank you and things like that. So she knows what Dad does. I think she's pretty proud of what Dad does. And she just, she's been really good about everything. Is she going to take over the company when I'm gone? Likely not. But still, end of the day, it's nice to have that support.
100%. Feeling supported, and especially by your family. And when your kids think what you do is pretty cool, they want to be a part of it, even if it's just a little bit or small, that gives us that fuel, right? In the days where because it's a grind, right? We talked about that, in the last couple episodes too. That's the theme here. I think it will always be present. Now, as far as books and what they meant to me, like what the books play in your life, Mickey? What do they mean to you?
It's a hard question, but I'm glad you asked it because, in all honesty, I've only started reading books in the last couple of years. My main passion is what's behind me on the wall here. It's comic books. I've been an avid comic collector since I was 5 years old. I love the characters, I love the art, I love the storylines, I love all of that. And what I didn't realize is you can get the same thing from books. And it took working with a number of different clients to finally get an idea and have a passion for the literature aspect of it. What I really enjoyed in working in this industry is how open people are to ideas and doing different things and writing different things and focusing from a business level about trying different things and not having a cookie cutter approach to not only media and publicity, but even writing things on paper and identifying what's going to work and what's not going to work. Working in business a lot, when I was with you, the other aspect, we never had a lot of that. It was very regimented and very uniformed and we had to do it this way or the highway. Here, you can do all kinds of things and try things and see if they stick. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But there's so many aspects of open concepts that's so rewarding out there. And that's what I find is so great about it.
So a couple of things there that I want to hitch my wagon to is I'll get back to the comic book stuff because I was a big fan as well growing up, and I had the character that I thought I was in my mind anyway. I think we all have a superhero in us, and I think that's why we love the shows, because we all dream of being able to change the world for good if we had those powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that creative piece, and how when we do have certain jobs or gigs, it doesn't give us the opportunity to be as creative as we want. The guardrails are typically really tight. We got to stay in that lane.
Yeah.
And we talked about it in previous shows around we're all creative beings, and we all have a thirst for it and want to have the opportunity to create and influence, right? Creating is an opportunity to influence too as well. And I'm sure in your role as a publicist at Creative Edge, there's a lot of moments of influence in your counseling and guiding authors in the creative process, or we'll get a little bit more into that because I'm really fascinated about your business. So that's really, really, really cool that you're able to do that as, the sole proprietor of your business. Now, comics, favorite comic, and if you could be a character, who would that be, Mickey? I'm always curious.
Favorite title or favorite issue?
Ah, boy, I know you're specific on these things. However you want to package it for the audience. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you only had one choice to be a character, who would it be and why? That's what I'm fascinated about.
It would be Batman, just because his origin story is so tragic. Watching him, Batman, watching his parents get gunned down in front of him. Just out of the blue, you've got two loving, wealthy parents. Your life is perfect. You can't imagine anything else. And all of a sudden, bam, bam, life just turns completely sideways. And you're seeing all this happen in front of you, like praying that you're not the next one to get shot. So, I mean, that aspect is just mind blowing. And the fact that Batman decides to take it upon himself to fight crime as a result of what happened to him. It's just, in that aspect, it's sad, but it's also incredibly gratuitous that he does that. So, I mean, I can't imagine, Batman's just my fave.
Cool. I love Batman too. And you talk about, the tragic component to stories, and origin stories for a lot of these superheroes are typically, they spawn from tragedy. And that's why I've always been a staunch fan of such stories, because, I don't think life's really easy for anybody, and we can't minimize what one person's, narrative or story is versus another. When we talk about sympathy, empathy, and compassion, right? What hurts one person one way may not hurt another person, in the same way. But it's what we decide to do with that hurt, that tragedy, and turning it around to do something good with it. So yes, absolutely cool. I love the Batman story. And of course, when why do we fall down, Master Wayne, right? So we can learn to pick ourselves up again. That's one of my favorite lines from the Batman movies. So books, and where did it start? So it says roughly about 5 years ago. And I know it started, your first client, it started with, a specific person was kind of like your launching pad. And let's talk about that. So before I put the picture up for the audience, you'll see Mickey and his client there, and I'll let Mickey talk to it. You'll see the title of the book, which definitely grabs your attention, and I'm a huge fan of that. I like stuff that I go, what? Wait a minute. I want to know the backstory about that. So maybe you can give some highlights about what the author is writing about in that book. So here we are, Mickey, and it's yours to speak to.
So my first client actually worked with myself and Steph in our other technological life, our corporate life per se. But she wrote a book called Chin Up Tits Out, and we were on an Alberta tour together. And previous to what I was working in the corporate world, I actually worked for Indigo, which is the biggest book chain in Canada, and I worked special events for them. So I told Miranda O, that's her there at our first book signing, actually, at Owl's Nest Books in Calgary. I told Miranda O that I would help her to get the word out about her book. And so we ended up setting up some signings for her in Alberta. We toured 8 cities as a result of the corporate business, and every night after our corporate meetings, we'd go to bookstores and we'd pitch books, and I'd teach her how to sell books, and she'd teach me some things as well. And at the end of the eight city tour, is what I'll call it, we both decided that we wanted this to continue on, that we were having fun with it. She sold some books. I felt that there was some success levels that we were doing there. She went back to Winnipeg, set up more signings, and had some more success with it. And thus, so Creative Edge was born. That was in August of 2015, I think, or 2016. I don't have a memory day. I'll memorize that. But regardless, August or March of that year. By August, I went from 1 author to 36 authors based on networking aspects like that.
Wow.
And we started getting media aspects and media relationships as a result of that. But yes, Miranda O was the poster child for Creative Edge. And if I had never done this with her, we probably wouldn't be talking today.
So awesome. I love the comment about you saying, there we go. A little comment there from Roger. What I love is you said we're having fun with it, right? And this was all
we were having a blast
after hours, after committing, and the job that we're speaking to, that you had and we had, basically sucked the life out of us, and it took all our time. So for you to have the time, the motivation, the fuel to chase something that, you know, turned you on and made you excited, and there where you are today, sometimes you just never know where something's going to take you. That's what I love about opportunities and grabbing on to one and following through, which you did in spades. So having fun with it, which is, I love it, because if you're not having fun, then it's not worthwhile. Now, so the other question that I had is, you know, the title of the book.
Yeah, I was going to get to that.
Yeah. Okay. All yours.
So there was a lot of controversy with some bookstores around the title because it's called Chin Up, Tits Out, right?
Yep.
And even when we talked to some media, there was some controversy about that as well. So, but the book title is not about that. It's about getting out there and being proud and being energetic. And I wish Miranda was here because she talked to it more, but really it's all about living your life and overcoming obstacles and being a better person as a result of those obstacles and all of those kinds of things. And so that's how we spun it, really, end of the day. And it worked wonders from that aspect. Did we get some pushback? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, hey, listen, you know what? I love things that get the attention. If somebody is not interested in seeking to know what the background story is, and you're judging a book by its cover, see what I did there? Oh, wow. You know, just based on a title in it, you feel, oh, well, I can't believe somebody would say that or write that. And then maybe you should, you know, immerse yourself in the story, and there'll be some context. And that's the same thing when you take the time to get to know people. If you're not going to take the time to get to know people and you're quick to pass judgment, well, you know what? I'm going to kick you to the curb. So it's standing tall in the face of obstacles and adversity in life from a woman's perspective. Would that be accurate in saying that, Mickey?
Completely, 100%.
Okay, very cool. So I'll throw that up again for anybody who's watching who may be interested in learning a little bit more, even picking up that book and leafing through the pages to get that context of what the author was looking to share with the world. Now, that's the other thing is, you know, whether it's fiction, and you're going to provide a lot more context about that, you know, as far as your authors, as we get deeper into this show, is I think there's a large vulnerability that goes into writing a book, because you're putting your creativeness down on paper in hopes that it will be well received, and hopefully that it does well. And that's the idea, you know, and I think it's somewhat cathartic too as an author when you do write something, you get that out and there on paper, and then you see what you're capable of creating is really cool. Now, I don't know if let's say Sylvain's on right now, but we're talking about, you know, writing a book. And I know that the book that I've been chipping away at, you know, I've got papers everywhere and ideas and bring it together. Mine will be very much nonfiction, but some of the stories, you know, some of the stories we've lived will seem very much like fiction because you can't make some of that, shit up. Like, but readers will read it and go, oh, okay, that can't be real. That's got to be fiction. No, that's the thing about life. Sometimes the stories can be outlandish. So, so moving on here, I'm going to throw up another author of yours, if that's okay.
Yeah,
and then maybe that'll be a segue. So, and then I'll throw up her book cover. So you can speak about her.
So this is New York Times bestseller, Tosca Lee. I've been working with Tosca since 2018. She came to me from a referral from another client, and she still works with me actively today. We're really good friends. We have a very good professional relationship. And she has currently at this time 4 books optioned for television in conjunction with Radar Pictures and Edward Burns's production company, Marlboro Road Game Productions. So those books haven't been made into TV yet, but we're confident that that's going to happen. It's not something that I set up directly, but I have been actively promoting her last 4 books for the last 2 years. And what's real about that is she's published with Simon & Schuster, which is one of the big book companies out of the 4. They're affiliated with Penguin now. But the whole basis behind the big book companies is they will typically only promote a book for 3 months and then stop and then move on to their next client. I've managed to sign some traditional authors like Tosca and Robert J Sawyer, which I know you're going to bring up later, because we're actively promoting their books for a longer period of time. Tosca's latest pandemic duology, A Single Light and the Line Between, we've been actively promoting those 2. Thanks, Steph. We've been actively promoting those 2 books for the last year and a half. She's had some small opportunities in terms of media. She's had some medium opportunities, and she's also had some substantial, bigger opportunities with magazine covers, being featured on the Beautiful Writers podcast, who also featured people like Lee Child and Tom Hanks. She's been interviewed there. Her broadcasts were also, as a result of that interview, were also broadcast through American Airlines, like the airline company.
Okay.
And all of those were featured on all their airplanes last year as well. So,
wow. And Tosca, she's in the U.S., right?
She is in the U.S. She's a farm girl in Nebraska, actually. That's where.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah,
never been, but yeah, it's definitely a spot that the missus and I want to check out. Now, you said something about books. It's true. I didn't even think of it until you mentioned it right now that, books can potentially turn into movies or TV shows. So
yeah,
that must be just like icing on the cake, for an author if their work turns into,
if it happens. I mean, being optioned doesn't mean it's going to happen. I mean, we've been waiting. Tosca's been waiting probably for the last 3 years for her stuff, but it takes time to make those things happen, right?
So speaking of which, Mickey, what, as a publicist and the things that we've already touched on so far, what are all the things that a publicist is not only responsible for, but preoccupied for their authors in lining stuff up and, putting in all those pieces to the puzzle for, the best possible outcome for their books and being published. So I think the viewing audience, and I'm part of that viewing audience, is what goes into all that? Because I have actually no idea.
Well, I think it's different by publicists. So I can't speak to what other publicists are doing for their clients. I can only speak to what I'm doing. And for me, it's really twofold. Number one, we want to get the books out to reader-focused areas in TV, print magazines, newspapers, podcasts like yours, Steph, getting press releases out there as well. In a general sense, we want to be able to do that with reader-focused clients that are designed to drive traffic to reader-focused areas. That's one level of it. The second level is to identify specific media points that are genre-focused for the genre that they're writing in. So, for example, Tosca identifies with Christian fiction. She's actually one of the biggest names in Christian fiction.
Oh, cool.
She also focuses on thriller, some levels of science fiction, some levels of horror. But I have clients who focus on only one or two of those areas. I have clients who focus only on science fiction, clients who focus on horror, clients who are focusing on nonfiction. So it's really important that we also pinpoint mediums that promote only those kind of areas, so that you're actually getting a twofold approach in terms of marketability, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, totally. It's kind of, I mean, you have your genres that your authors focus on, and you're looking to get them in front of leveraging the right avenues and mediums in order to get,
Exactly.
yes. Okay. So I guess I wouldn't be looking to promote a nonfiction book, mine in a fiction style.
Romance.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest challenges and obstacles for authors out there? To not only, I mean, get published. I mean, I know the industry has changed. I know a little bit, but I know the industry has changed quite a bit from maybe going back 25, 30 years. So what are the greatest challenges for authors today?
Well, there's a couple of challenges overall with everybody in terms of timing and trying to get the word out. But from an independent self-published standpoint, there's still a big stigma around the fact that self-published authors, because the books are self-published and they can pretty much put out whatever they want, that those books aren't well written. And so a lot of the traditional media standpoints, it's getting better, but even today still, they won't cover self-published authors. So there's that stigma around that.
Okay.
And it's definitely a stigma. It's definitely not true. I work with a lot of authors who are self-published, and their book covers are vibrant. The content inside is professionally edited multiple times. The content is good, but they have to be able to get media to take a chance on them. That's one stigma around it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing too is a lot of authors are extremely introverts, meaning they don't like the promotional standpoint. I saw one comment on the just now actually about how I don't like promotion, right? Well, that's true. 80% of authors, and I won't generalize, but I'm just going to say this, 80% of authors don't want to get out there, or they don't know how to get out there. And so that's a problem. If you're trying to get your book out there, you have to find ways to make that happen. People like myself help with that trajectory, in my opinion. So.
No, that's cool. I want to pause on that because there's a few things there that are inspiring to me, because it again, it's one thing to write a book. It's one thing to have that know-how, that ability, because I'm always fascinated at, authors and some stories that get written. You're like, where did all of that come from? You just go, wow, mad respect for that creative ability. So now you have your work on paper, and that other piece. Well, I mean, if it's your means to making money and wanting to make money and wanting to continue doing something that you love, well, then clearly you want to get paid for it. Then there's that it's a double-edged sword. So now you got to go out and promote. So which means there's a fear factor. I know from my personal evolution over the years, and the first times that I had to be on a camera, speak in front of a group of people, I just wanted to implode. It was like, no, time out. I want nothing to do with it. But it's the necessary evil, like you're saying, to getting over that obstacle, especially if you're self-published, to create that awareness and create some excitement and some energy. And like you said, the word helping with that trajectory. Mm-hmm. And it's great that you play that role in assisting in that process, because it is daunting. It is daunting to have to sit down and get asked questions and talk to things that are personal, because it's your work. There's nothing more personal, I think, than your work, right? So I love that you highlighted that in the word stigma. So I guess if you're a self-published author, you just, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way I'm understanding it, you're having to pound the pavement a little bit harder in order to okay, so a couple of comments here. I just want to make sure we throw up. We got that from Roger. Yeah, that's creative. Okay.
Okay.
And then good. right? So Sylvain, he's saying, don't know how to get out there and where to start. And that's what On the Cusp is all about, learning from the likes of you too, Mickey, which is why I'm thankful you're on the show. And they're about creating and selling. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So awesome for you opening that can of worms, because that's the biggest challenge. So, so I know, just based on some of our conversations along the way, you act as that medium for setting people up with interviews and stuff, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what avenues do you select and pick for your authors? What does that look like?
We run our business a little differently than our publicists, because it's all about the relationship standpoint. So Creative Edge in the last 5 years has worked really, really hard to get to know the medium, get to know the book bloggers, get to build those relationships. And so from that aspect, we've got a set number of people that we work with. And it's not even a question of coverage. They'll do it because of the relationship we managed to build. That's one aspect of it. And they're all reader focused areas. So there's traffic from that aspect. The second part, though, is to determine what mediums are going to work for which author, because what works for Tosca is not necessarily going to work for someone who's written a children's book, because they're completely different animals and completely different aspects. And so part of the onboarding process with Creative Edge is me having phone calls and conversations with my clients to develop battle plans when a new release comes out or a new book's coming out, and to make sure that we're on the same page always around the publicity. It's managed to build out loyalty, full support, and have a long-term relationship. I mean, for example, as well, we actually have Zoom calls every month, me and my clients, just to talk about mediums and find out about promotion and try to build up value that way as well. And beyond that, I'm also very open to having conversations with any member of my team to make sure that we're always on the same page around stuff, because what one member of the team does in an interview actually affects 80 other people, because you're basically representing Creative Edge in those processes.
Okay.
So if someone puts out a bad interview with, say, Global TV, is Global going to be keen to bring on another author? Probably not.
Wow. Okay.
You have to think about those things as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like being guilty by association if things do go sideways. Okay. So there's a certain level of management in managing that on, and coaching to that on your end of things with
Absolutely.
clients, right? Yeah. No, I could see that and appreciate that for sure. Wow. Wow. Very cool. So I'm going to throw up here. I pulled this from your site. There's a testimonial here. I threw it up.
Robert J Sawyer, yeah.
Right. And that's from, I'll let you speak to that, who this individual is, because I think it's definitely worth mentioning.
This testimonial is from Robert J Sawyer. I started working with him in January of 2017. He was the first traditionally published author that I ever worked with. And he reached out to me and we had a conversation. He's won every major science fiction award, only Canadian to ever do that. And he's also a member of the Order of Canada, as well as a member of the Order of Ontario. One of his books, Flash Forward, was made into a TV series for one season on ABC. And he has been a huge advocate of me and Creative Edge, and just an incredible support person overall for everybody.
So I think I think I have the right picture. That's
him there. Yeah.
Great. Good. Awesome. So
yeah,
it's when I listen to you speak of, these authors and sometimes the reach that they have for what they've created. And again, not necessarily knowing how big it can get, and, it being turned into a TV show, and you having influence, or you played a role in that relationship, right? In assisting somebody, achieve these things is really, really cool, right? And it's something that I'm passionate about in the roles that I've played as a coach or a leader in playing a part in people's success. Now, the Order of Canada. Okay, so I'm fascinated by that. What is that exactly, Mickey?
I don't honestly know the whole logistics about that, but I know that Robert gets to basically welcome immigrants into the country and sign off on their papers and things like that. But it is a very prestigious award. Other people who've been on there have been people like Dan Aykroyd, people like that. So it's extremely prestigious, and very few people are labeled that or given that honor. He was given that honor based on his work in the science fiction vein and his influence in science fiction in Canada, because he's highly successful, a highly successful author in that industry.
Awesome. Does he have any work coming out soon in the background, or?
I think he's actively writing a book right now. We haven't had a chance to talk lately, but his last book that I actually promoted was put out last year. So, but I mean, he's got worldwide connections. I mean, I know he talked in a debate in Helsinki for an hour with Dr. Stephen Hawking on stage. So things like that, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah, and he knows a lot of people from Star Trek, and he's just highly influential in the science fiction vein.
That is really cool.
And I hope I'm not misleading anybody by saying the things I'm saying, but anyways.
No, that's really cool. Great success story there. So speaking of books, Mickey, what goes into writing? Just throwing some comments out there. What goes into writing a book? What advice would you have for myself or anybody else who would love to put pen to paper and tell their story? I mean, it's one thing to have the information. Now, I'll give you an example that maybe help the audience and for the show. Way back when I decided to do an article, because really what we're talking about is being able to market yourself and market your product. Being a book, I reached out to a writer. I believe she was not necessarily technical writer. She was a writer. She was recommended to me, and I wanted to promote my strength and conditioning business in the Ottawa region and just get more awareness out there to grow my business, right? Just more clients, build a business, more money, etc. And she showed up to my place and she sat down with me. Now, I have no problem with content. As you know, I'm a talker. I can, I have a lot to say, whether people are willing to listen or not. So she came to the house. I sat down with her. She had her pen and paper, and I just started talking. And I would ask him, like, hey, do you miss anything? Do you need anything? I just don't know, because I'm like just randomly throwing stuff out there. It just really had no organization to it. So she goes, nope. It's great. So she just collected all the information, all the data, and within a few days, she shot over her article about me. And I remember reading it, Mickey, and I was like, wow, I sound smart.
Of course you're smart. Of course you're smart.
I just like that, all that verbal diarrhea I spent, with her, and that it was amazing. It was my first opportunity to appreciate that skill set. To take all that and to make it into something that is smart, consumable, good flow, context, and gets really ultimately the theme and the point across. So sorry for all that, because I think it ties into my question is, what advice do you have for people who would be considering writing a book? What's the process? How do you do it? What are your resources, etc.? I
don't know that I can speak to all of that, because that's not something that I typically get involved in, but I can give a couple of pieces of advice from my belief anyways. Number one, make sure you're putting out a quality product. Make sure that it is professionally edited. Make sure the book is completely professionally edited. And that means going out and getting beta readers to read it, getting a proper professional editor to do it. Make sure that it's all done properly. And then put the money out. If you're going to put a product out, spend the money to get a proper book cover. Spend the money to get a proper layout. If you're an independent author, maybe set up an independent publishing vein so that when you're putting it up on Amazon, it doesn't say published by Joe Blow. It's actually got a name to it. These are all things that create legitimacy in the industry, and dramatically affect that stigma. The other thing, and this is always an unpopular thing when I say it, but I do believe it to be true. There are lots of authors out there who will pump out a book every single month or every 2 months because they believe the more books they have, the more money they're going to make. And while that might be true, in my opinion, and knowing the media aspect, that hurts your legitimacy, because if you're pumping out a book every single month, how much work are you actually investing to put out that product to make sure that it is quality and readable? There are reasons why traditional authors like Tosca Lee or Robert J. Sawyer or Stephen King, for example, who we all know who he is.
Yep.
There are reasons why they only put out 1 or 2 books a year, because of all the work that it takes to get into that book and market that book. If you're putting out a book every month, how are you going to market a book every month? Right.
Right.
The right way. How are you going to do that? You can't.
I knew we would eventually go there with this conversation, and it's, again, everything we talk about is branding, right? And I know there's some people on the show watching. I mean, we've talked about it with Roger and On the Cusp, and the process, and quality takes time. I say that almost every day at work. Quality takes time. If you round the corners or try and cheat and whatnot, your personal brand is the lifeblood of your identity, is how I put it. And you're sharing exactly what I'm passionate about is, once it's out there, it's out there. So take the time and doing it right. And like you said, a book cover. I mean, I love book covers.
Well, that's eye-catching, right?
It's the first thing you see, right?
Exactly.
And I liken it, maybe it's a bad parallel, but for me, just a random thought. It's even if I'm picking out a red wine, sometimes I'm picking out a red wine just purely because of the label. I just love the artwork and the label, and I'm like, somebody took time on this label, so you know what, I'm going to take time to drink it. So it's the same thing. Somebody took time on the artwork. He brought up Stephen King, and I just think he's brilliant. I think I only read one of his books, but I like consuming his work more from the movie standpoint. But you nailed it. That is such an important part of your success in marketing yourself, is the creative process and taking the time to package it and market it correctly. So I really appreciated you going there with that.
Well, and to that point though, Steph, I'll just say this as well. I do have clients who are putting out a book every couple of months. Okay. I do. I have authors who do that. But my guideline around that is, that's great, you can do that, but I'm only going to promote 2 books this year or next year. Okay. I won't promote all their books. I will promote 1 or 2 books, and that's it. Because I truly believe that marketability takes time. And if you're bombarding the media every month with a different book, it hurts your legitimacy. That's what I believe. So,
well, I guess it'd be hard for like, say, if I was an author and I was doing exactly that, and then I had a book out there a month, and the next month a new one comes out, it really waters down my first book that I put out, because it's not going to get traction when now you're changing the media focus on this next one. I mean, and I have another question for you. The other part to that is, I guess once you've made a name, and I know Stephen King doesn't operate that way, but I guess once you've really made a name for yourself and you're churning out really quality stuff, I suppose there's a little bit more leniency, and if you are putting out more books than the average author in a year, because you've established a brand. However, you mentioned that you'll only pick, well, let's say I'm an author and I have 8 books that I've written in a year, and you just mentioned that you may select 1 or 2 to help promote. How do you pick which 1 or 2 out of maybe that 8? I'm curious.
I get the authors to pick them, because then I know that they're fully invested in what we're trying to do from a relationship standpoint.
Okay, so there's the trust there that they can critique their work openly and honestly, saying, "Here, Mickey, here are what I feel are my 2 best pieces of work out of the 8 that I have."
Yeah, There's
great.
an author I work with. Her name is Catherine Hudson. She is one of those individuals who will write multiple books in a year or two, and she does very well for herself. But one book that she launched before we started working together. Well, we relaunched it, and it became an international bestseller.
Okay. So relaunched it.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the relaunch, obviously the approach was different.
Yes and no, because we still did a press release for it.
Okay.
But the areas we were focusing on, she wasn't able to get traction on because she didn't have a publicist before. But now she had a publicist. So we were able to get some traction as a result of that. And the way we did it, and I do this with all my clients, is we started to leverage smaller podcasts and smaller opportunities first, just to get her feet wet and get her name out there a little bit. And then we started, and those podcasts might only have 15, 20 views or 30 views or whatever. They're smaller opportunities. Then we graduated to medium opportunities, which is when we started doing some traction for this book. And within 2 months, she started getting focuses on areas like Curve Magazine, which is the biggest lesbian selling magazine in the world. She was on Fox News, and we started leveraging all of that. And so by the time the book was actually out there and the release was out there, she'd hit like #1 in multiple countries on Amazon, and it became an international bestseller.
Wow.
Yeah. So It's a good news story. And now people know who she is. Whenever I reach out for media aspects, she's got her name out there. So it's not as hard or difficult to get more coverage for her as a result of that.
And that's ultimately what the where you have to be most relentless about, right? Is getting that awareness of who you are in your work and having your name out there, right? I mean, that's what I connect to. That's what resonates with me is, if people don't know who you are and what you've done and what your work is, and it doesn't get any attention, then it's tough. So it's selling yourself and it's selling your book. And I'm sure there's a lot of no's in the process before there's a yes for, some of your authors, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the frustrating, thank you for bringing that up. The frustrating part with that is meeting, and I talk with authors all the time. Like I talk with authors every week. But the frustrating thing is when I'm meeting with an author who's relatively unknown, and their expectation is, well, you're going to get me on all these major media aspects. I don't want to do the small opportunities. I only want the bigger ones. I only want TV. I only want major newspapers. Well, you have to walk before you run. That's my opinion. Yeah. And you have to do the smaller opportunities if you want to get the medium and bigger opportunities. It's a process, and it takes time.
I love what you just said there. I know, because it's tough because you play a consultant. That's, I mean, your role, right? You're consulting to people, and you're tried and true, and you've developed a successful brand. And you said the word process. I mean, life's a process.
It is. Absolutely.
Everything's a process, and like you said, you got to walk before you run. I love that quote. And it's, tempering people's enthusiasm, right? You're happy that the person's enthusiastic and they just want to blow up the world with their book, but then you got to pull in the reins and say, hey, before we can get to those opportunities, we're going to have to jump through these hoops first, and the patience that goes with that, because sometimes we just expect and want things to happen a lot faster, a lot sooner, which is the human condition, right?
Of course.
Things will happen overnight, but they just don't. So you obviously play a very candid role in their professional life in that way. So another question for you. So over 80 authors, how do you manage all that? How do you manage all those relationships and all those connections? And yeah,
I don't sleep. Let's put it that way.
It was a quick side story. And I remember the times we'd be traveling, we'd be in like 4 different hotels and 4 different nights, and I'd have to turn on the lights in the middle of the night to know where the bleep I was, because I'd wake up in a panic. I know I'm not home, but I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in Carrot River. Mickelson, I'm in Carrot River. And we'd say, okay, well, what time breakfast? What time we want to hit the road so we can get there on time to for our next engagement for our account. And you're like, yeah, well, I'll be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we just finished having dinner at the Keg, and a couple of beers and good steak and whatnot. And you'd be going to bed at like 10 o'clock, and I'd be like, are you gonna get 4? You're like, didn't even bat an eyelash. You're like, yep, because I've got my creative edge business. I've got to get to my authors and my clients and whatnot. And I would always say this to myself, and you did it without like going, yeah, as if it was a burden, it goes back. You can see that you really enjoyed it, and you have to, man. To get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do anything, you got to be somewhat passionate about it. So I had a lot of respect for you, that way, that commitment that you had to your author. So when you say, you get no sleep, so what are the things, the activities that you're doing to tee up for them, like week to week?
It depends on the author, because every month we're focusing on different books. So does every author get opportunities every single month? No. But with that, from a pricing standpoint, that's the only thing I want to say about that is, if I don't book an author in a month for something, they're not paying me in that month. I don't get an invoice for them. So it depends on the month, but typically it depends on when the book is coming out and what we have to look out for in that given month. On average, we're probably booking between 120 to over 300 opportunities every single month.
Wow.
Based on press release posts, interviews, blog posts, guest posts, whatever. From a media standpoint, that's what we're averaging. So part of managing all of that is having conversations, obviously, but also being very, very logistic and being very scheduled with expectations about what needs to happen from a calendar standpoint. So that's where that comes in. And since I've been full time with this, it's a lot easier to manage that calendar than when I was doing it part time and doing, well, the work that we did. So
yeah. Oh, I could imagine. And I think we had some conversations along the way with all that windshield time about, I was in the world of clients too as well. As a strength and conditioning coach, I had clients and still clients, internal clients in your company, and you're managing all those. And every relationship is created differently, as far as expectations or even accountability, and kind of setting a schedule. And you must have a range of commitment levels with some of your clients, right? It's kind of like, hey, here's what you need, the recipe to be successful. This is what we need to do as far as an action plan and execute on it. Do you find you have to have some hard conversations sometimes with your clients around, hey, you really want to get your book out there and it to be known, we're not, doing the things that we need to do to get you there?
Yes and no. I've had to have some hard conversations with some individuals, and some individuals have had some hard conversations with me about their expectations. So it's all, to me, it's a two-way street. And anytime you're in a working relationship, that's what it is. It's a working relationship. It's not a one-sided thing. Am I an employee of those authors? Likely, yeah, they pay me. So end of the day, that's essentially, I guess, what I am. But it's at a much higher level because it's a relationship. So you're able to speak candidly and be open. And as long as you're professional about it and having a communication standpoint, there shouldn't be any issues. The minute the issues start happening is when you see red flags or trends that are happening, such as being unprofessional on an interview, or having a media outlet not be the right fit, or not be something that they said they were. And so that's where the difference is, in my opinion. Relationship is relationship, right? So
yeah, and there it is again, right? Is how closely knit that relationship is, and the expectation set at the beginning, and that's that consulting role that you play. And you said something that I enjoy around, when I people say, oh, you're self-employed, that must be nice. I'm like, yeah, well, you're having to write your own paycheck, and
Yep.
I have about 35 different bosses, not just one.
Yeah.
And what do you mean 35 different bosses? Yeah, my clients. My clients are my
Exactly.
boss. They're the ones who write my paycheck. And if I don't do a bang up job, then I lose clients. And, sometimes a bit of an education of what, that grind is, or that hustle is to be self-employed. So another thing that I'm curious about, I look at, the world and the life of authors similar to the world and the life of an actor, passing out your headshots and trying to get an audition and trying to get in front of the right person to be cast in a role. And hopefully that role will be the right, environment to get more work and to get more jobs. Have you ever had a situation where you see, an author really working hard and putting a lot, stuff out there, and then it's just falling flat? And like, how do you keep somebody enthused, motivated, inspired to continue with that kind of work? Because I mean, not every author is a best-selling author, right? I mean, that's
it's true. There's
right?
lots that aren't best-selling authors, and
So,
they're still paying, right? No, for sure.
you have any experience with that, in your time with authors who may feel a little deflated about, just it's not working?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, but I mean, that's the thing that I love about this industry is the authors know that if they don't get their work out there, regardless whether they're paying me or they're paying someone else to help them or they're doing it themselves, they understand that publicity may not equate back to dollars. And I say that initially with the consultations too. I say that my efforts that I'm doing for you may not equal back to sales, because it's not really about that. What it's really about is building their brand and building them up as people. So when I'm positioning this, and I'll use that word gradually, but when I'm positioning this, I'm basically saying I'm here to build up Steph St. Laurent's brand. I'm not here to build your book. The book is a byproduct of what you do. And so as we're going through this journey together, you're going to see highs, you're going to see lows. Am I ever going to guarantee sales for you? No. But what I will guarantee you is you will get coverage in all aspects that you're looking for. And if I don't get you coverage, well, I'm not charging you then. And that's how this works.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Does that make sense?
That totally does make sense. No, that's cool. And that's where that's critical, right? Is setting that expectation with people versus making promises that, you really ultimately you can't keep. And that's the integrity in what you do. And you're probably one of well, I'd say a handful of people over my lifetime that truly has a second to none integrity about you. And that's where, why the friendship was easy to cultivate with you. And you see it that way, and you present things very honestly. And this is how it is. This is how it works. And there's no fluff around it. So really it's with your connections. You're kind of a medium or a portal for them to access your connection. So a guy like me wants to write a book. Learning to Lead Yourself is the title.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, hey, Mickey, help me out. Help me get me out there, in front of the right people, talking to the right people. And then because otherwise I just don't have those connections. That's that networking piece, right? I am plugging into your already established network to make a splash with my book. Okay.
Exactly. Now, with other publicists, some publicists will take money up front, and it's a high amount, like in the thousands. And then, like, I've heard horror stories. In fact, a couple of my clients have had horror stories where they paid this kind of money up front, got a couple of little things, but then it stopped after 3 months, or they didn't get the results of what they needed. So when I set up my pricing, I basically stated, you only pay for what you get covered. If I don't book you anything, you don't pay me anything. So, and that's another way of building loyalty, right? Because
I like that. That works for me. Having, not only provided services or been a client, and there's that integrity piece, that why you have a successful business and why you'll grow your business, or you get, the likes of a testimonial that we threw up on screen earlier, is that's your personal brand. And, we all have a personal brand if we want to work with that. Clearly I'll be picking Creative Edge, Mickey Mikkelson, to guide me through, to coach me through, to make sure that I get it right when it's time to launch this book. So that being said, so you touched on a few of those things. What for the viewing audience, if they do have a book that they're working on, whether it's you or another publicist, what are the things that you would want to educate people on if they're looking to pick a publicist outside of what you've already shared, as far as taking money up front versus how you do it? What are your recommendations? What are your?
I think it's important that authors do their homework, that they look at all aspects of publicity, and that they're talking to a few publicists. If that's what they want to do, is hire a publicist. Is that talk to a few publicists and make sure that they get what they're looking for. There's lots of publicists who will do contract work 2-3 months at a time, take money up front, get paid for those 3 months, and then call it a day. There's other publicists like myself who aren't interested in commodities, which is what that is. They're more interested in year-long annual contracts and having a long-term relationship. So it really depends what the author is really, really looking for. But it's important to ask tough questions, get testimonials from them, see the kind of things that they're doing or what they've done, and maybe get some links from that. I'm able to provide those things because I've done all that kind of stuff. So
no, that's
the kind of stuff to look for, right?
Yeah, that's perfect, actually. Yeah. So who have you worked with? What kind of work have you done? What's
exactly.
that proof of life? And like picking a good dentist or a good carpenter or a good anything, right? I mean, it's exactly that. Asking, like you said, I like that. Ask a lot of hard questions. Ask, the important,
well,
right?
and if the publicist is, sorry, I cut you off, but if
No,
the publicist is legitimate, they're going to want to ask questions to that author as well and decide whether they want to work with that author or not. It goes two ways. Like I'm turning authors down all the time for stuff because I don't think they're the right fit for my team. So I don't sign them. And vice versa. I've had authors who said no to me because they just want TV and I just don't focus on one entity. I focus on everything. So yeah.
That's why I love you, pal. I have a big shit-eating grin on my face for what you just said, because I've spent many years. Well, at first, I would say yes to every client because you're trying to build something. You're trying to pay the bills, right? And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I would, pick up clients that were, let's say, to keep it simple, a real headache and just weren't committed. And after having that consultation and say, what are your goals? What are you looking trying to achieve? And like you and your role, it's like, hey, I'm committed to that, but here are the expectations we want to do. And then I got to a point where I've developed my brand and my personal brand and my craft to a point where I could literally pick and choose the people I was going to work with. And that's a great place to be when you've done all of that work, where you go, okay, I've established a very strong brand in an industry. And now I don't have to have these headaches anymore. And you can screen the kind of clients you want. And I've been said no to too. I've had clients say, hey, I've watched you work out and I've seen you with some of your clients and you're scary. You just scare me. And I'd be like, oh man, that's certainly not the image I'm looking for. I'm not looking to scare anybody. And again, don't judge a book by its cover, because I've worked with little old ladies and little old men coming back from a hip replacement or knee replacement. And so you touch on something I really like, where it's okay if the relationship doesn't fit and it doesn't work, but it's being honest out of the gate about that, right? So thank you for that part. It validates me in a lot of ways. And
it's funny because I did the exact same thing you did when I started my business. I mean, for the first 6 months, I signed everybody, but I even went beyond that because I was still learning my craft. I did not have the media connections or the experience that I do now. So for the first 6 months, I didn't charge anybody anything. I did everything pro bono for the first 6 months. And then as I started to build up, and then Robert J Sawyer signed to that next year, I was able to be at a point where I could actually start charging people for what we're doing. And now, well, we're good. We're there. So
creative edge and who you are, what you shared so far is a perfect example of what it means to stay committed to something that you believe in light of obstacles, or not, like you said, pro bono, not being paid for what you do. And I want to expand on that. Is same thing. I remember I had a client who really opened the doors for me, and I was undercharging for my service, so the level, the quality of what I was giving as a service. And I'll never forget her when it was time for her to renew some sessions, and she had her checkbook out, and she looked at me and she said, Steph, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like to hear, but I'm going to tell you. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting some negative feedback here. I'm like, I was bracing myself. And she says, you don't charge enough. You do
I
not.
have that talent all the time. People tell me that.
You don't charge enough for your service. And then I remember going, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And then I was in the moment trying to wrap my mind around it and going, okay, well, it's that whole asking. She helped me with something that I had enormous difficulty with, which was self-worth and belief in self, that what I was doing was actually really good. And it was really at a higher level of quality and service and in results as well. And so a couple of things, and I want you to piggyback on that when I'm done, is she opened the door for me to evaluate, okay, yeah, she is right. I'm not charging enough for my service. And then I had to come to terms with that. And then I had to swallow really hard when it came time to, with my clients, to say, hey, my rates are going up. So clients that I've had for a long time, right? So you're like, hey, Mickey, I'm used to charging you $50 a session. Now I'm going to be charging you $75 a session. So that's like $250 more, a package every time you renew. So I was terrified. And for the large part, I'd say 95% of my clients were all on board with it. They were okay. And it was just this big, oh, okay. I thank this person for not only being a fan, but giving me the confidence to charge what I was worth. So you saying 6 months to just doing it pro bono, and getting to a point where, you've gained more confidence, or you've gained some clients that allow you to do that, must have been just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I was scared at some point, because I was like, okay, I've been doing this for 6 months for free, booking between 50 to 100 opportunities every single month, because I had 35 clients at the time.
Wow.
And it's all of a sudden, I'm doing this part-time. I'm doing it at 4 a.m. till whatever time, and then I start work. I'm at the point now where I'm starting to get opportunities on places like CTV and CBC and things like that. So I'm thinking, now's the time I could probably start charging some money for it. And it was scary as hell putting that schedule out there and saying, okay, everybody, it's been 6 months. I'm now going to start effectively charging for my services. Here's the list. You tell me what you guys want to do. And I was expecting like 35 cancellations. Like, that's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
I was thinking, okay, Creative Edge is now effectively done.
Yeah.
I didn't get a single email. Not one. Everybody signed up. Everybody. So it just shows you what you can do if you take risks, right? So
well said, Mickey. Well said. And that you said I was expecting 35 cancellations.
I was.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Like, oh, here you go. Time to spend more time at my regular gig.
Exactly.
Forget the 4 o'clock wake up calls. But and that's part of working hard to establish a strong brand, and people who say, hey, you know what, you've done right by me, and I'm happy to pay you. And part of that too, when I was not charging enough, it was almost like shooting myself in the foot, because to come back from that, and that's why I've coached people along the way, and to say, make sure you're charging what is fair for the level of service and quality you're charging. Because when you undercut your prices just to gain business, it's very hard to come back from that, right?
Agreed.
You had brand loyalty, and that's awesome. There's a huge testament to you that everybody was like, yeah, Mickey, makes sense. Let's just keep on trucking. So congratulations for that. So what's next for Creative Edge? Like, where are you going? Where are you taking this Creative Edge ship? Like, what's the next things on the docket for you?
I think that we have to start spreading our wings a little bit in terms of social media aspects, in terms of getting more media opportunities, building those relationships, and how that works, and what's the protocol for that is continually signing clients of high quality and clients who have some mainstream professionalism around them, whether they are smaller indie published or not. it's building up the base, but making sure that the base and the people you're bringing on will provide value back, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100% it does.
The strength of how we're getting media opportunities today is because I'm able to provide a very strong list of people who write in virtually every genre. So I have media people all the time telling me what a roster you have. Like, oh my God, how are you doing this? People, and they're not just little rinky-dink people in the media, they're like big people. The Montreal Times has said that. CTV has said that. Fox News has said that. The Nerd Daily has said that. These are big media aspects. These are big mediums, and they're like, your client list is phenomenal. So
the Nerd Daily.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So
they're one of the biggest fan fiction sites in Australia. Actually, they're huge. They get 1 million hits a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
See, you don't know what you don't know, and spending time with you.
So, but I mean, that's where I think we need to go, and I think we need to start spreading out our reach in terms of getting media opportunities. And so that's what we're going to be looking to do for 2022 and for onwards.
That's awesome. Well, I know I certainly need to chat more with you. I need to get off my lazy writer's butt and finally, put something together and package something. And you spoke something earlier around, a cover for a book. Well, fortunately, I already have a talented artist in my back pocket by the names of Roger, who I've already been a long time about, what that would look like. So it's always fun you talked about it, connections, relationships that you have, and even doing this kind of show, and for people to meet the likes of you and other guests on the show, that there's opportunity if you just reach out for certain mentors or to ask for that help, and even say, hey, Mickey, I need help with, when we cross that bridge around the book. And it's just nice when you have people who are, you can count on, trust, that have the means to help you, trust the means that you'll help them get you there, and collaborate. That's another, I'm passionate about collaborating. So I want to take a small change in direction. If we talked about it in the green room before, getting on the live side of things here. One of the things that I've always had an enormous amount of respect for you, appreciation and love, is your commitment as a father. You touched on it earlier in the show, about your daughter. And I think it's a great part of the conversation. She plays a role in your daily life. She believes in Dad and what he does, and helped you with your branding and your logo, which I find just absolutely stellar. So I'm going to put a picture up and that we talked about. And I think, I think it's a great conversation to have for people who, should know more. So here we are.
So my high functioning autistic daughter, in the last couple of years, has pulled her hair out. First, she started pulling out her eyelashes, and they're starting to grow back, as you can see there. But she pulled all of her hair out. They don't allow kids to wear hoods at school, but they did with her, and her hair is slowly growing back now. But at one point, the hair that you see there on her is actually more than she had. Like, she was virtually completely bald. And so, as a way of supporting her, I think the condition is called trutelium or something like that. But as a way of supporting her in her quest and her journey with all this, I made the conscious decision to have my daughter, not a hairdresser, but my daughter, shave my head bald as a way of support. And so that's where this picture came from. And that's what I did. And it's only helped to build up the bond between me and her as people. and her hair is starting to slowly grow back now, but for a while it's really tough. Like, she was getting bugged, she was getting mocked, ridiculed. There was hair all over the house, hair all over the school. The teachers didn't know what to do with it. And so I made the decision to tell Ezra, if you want to shave Dad's head so Dad can be like you in this journey as you work through this, let's do it.
Wow,
and so we did it.
And what I think is the coolest thing about that is you said that, you know, you didn't shave it yourself and come out as a, hey, surprise, look what I did, you know, just to support you, or you got a hairdresser to do it. What a more visceral and true bonding moment between father and daughter in connection to say, hey, you know, here's a clipper. You know, you want to shave my head? You go ahead and do it. And man, you know, that's some big stuff. And I know that of you in the time that we've spent together and just the conversations we've had, and, you know, as parents, and every situation is unique, and how you navigate that. I mean, even as far as what I remember you sharing with me, you know, you live where you live specifically in support of what your daughter needs. And when you walk me through, and it's up to you if you want to share for the audience, but when you walk me through, okay. So when you walk me through that, I was like, okay, wow, it's enormously committed. Right. So, you know, thanks for wanting to share that, you know,
no, for sure.
The audience. There's another picture here. I pulled it off of your Facebook. No surprise, because we talked about this.
Okay.
I don't like surprising the guests.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
And you know what you posted, I was like, I'm going to grab that and I want to paste that on the show for kind of maybe, you know, rounding the corner and closing off. And then we will leave it up to you if anybody has any questions for you as a publicist. But what's nice is this show lives in eternity on the Cusp YouTube channel and Facebook, on my, you know, on the Cusp page, and also my personal page. So if you want 2022 to be your year, don't sit on the couch and wait for it. Go out, make a change, smile more, be excited, do new things, throw away what you've been cluttering, unfollow negative people on social media, go to bed early, wake up early, be fierce. Don't gossip, show me gratitude, do things that challenge you, be brave. So when I read that, my immediate response was, mother, father, everything I believe in, everything that is true, no truer words. Love it. So what does this all mean to you, and going into 2022 and everything we've talked about? Like, why did you share this? Because obviously you shared it because it resonated with you. I'd like to know why.
Yeah, 2021 was, and I won't get into full details, but it was an awakening year for me. A year that's had some major challenges that I'm starting to overcome, which I won't get into personally. But it's just, you know, turning that leaf and turning that stage, and understanding that belief and positivity, and if you're going to make some change, or you're going to have some trajectory about where your influence is going to be in life. Well, when I saw this post, these are some of the key things that will likely need to happen if that change is going to be effective. So that's why I posted it. I'm hoping that some of my authors will see this as well. And if they're having challenges in their lives, that they'll be able to incorporate that as well. But this is the stance for Mickey Mikkelson, and this is definitely going to be the stance for Creative Edge going forward for next year, and hopefully for years going forward. So, yeah.
Well, you know, thanks, Mickey, for that. What you did with this little post here, you summarized predominantly what On the Cusp is really striving for, endeavoring to do with each guest is, you know, we shy away from reaching out with those fingers, reaching out far enough to grab what we ultimately is ours to own, when it's like our personal goals and you know, aspirations and objectives. Especially like, well, if you're sitting on the couch, well, you're certainly not inspired and probably maybe properly motivated to stretch those fingers and reach out and start, because an action plan is an action plan, as you know, unless it's executed upon, it's just pieces of paper. Go out, that, it's having that courage to do that, making a change, trying something different. I like to smile more, Mickey. Thank you for that in there, because that's the pay it forward. It doesn't take much to just smile. And there's so much of the opposite. Sounds simple, but it's not common practice. So that's right. Okay, I'll let you have that, Roger. I support.
It's not 2022 yet, Roger. You're okay.
Exactly, Mickey. Exactly. So just keeping that up a little bit longer, like, throw away what you've been cluttering. I like that, right? Clutter just is noise in different terms, and the noise really creates a lot of tripwires in getting to where you want to go. Unfollow negative people on social media. Yep, right. Who you surround yourself with is really ultimately who you become. Go to bed early. That happens in our house already, so check that box for me. Wake up early. That happens in the house here. Check that box for me. So be fierce. I love that. Be fierce. For me, what that means to me is just having that fire in your belly and believing in yourself and not letting anybody's hoodly daddle and toxicity and naysaying and hate and get in the way of what is right in the marrow of your bones and in your soul of what makes you happy, facing that and being fierce about it. Don't gossip. I love that one. I can't stand gossip. It just really is so toxic, and it tears people down, teams down, relationships down. Show more gratitude. Man, this thing is just riddled with all the stuff, I hold near and dear to my heart. So show thanks, give thanks. It's not hard. It's easy to say negative things to people, and rather than say good things, and do the things that challenge you. That's going outside that comfort zone, right? Outside the box. And that last part is to be brave. Yeah. All of what precedes the be brave comment, it takes courage, and we can get there together. And this is what the community at OTC is trying to achieve: is real talk, real people about real lives and real situation and obstacles. So I'm going to pull this off here and around the corner before we open it up to maybe some questions, if there is any, and comments. So what would you want to leave the viewing audience with as final thoughts, final ideas? It's your show.
Lots of people ask me ongoing if what I do is rewarding, because lots of people know that I spend a lot of time doing this, in terms of hours, weekends, timing, all of that. And I've said this before, but I want to say it here so that it's recorded and it's out there. I don't think I've ever done that. I get to work with some of the most highly intelligent, influential, valued people on a daily basis in the literary field, from a client perspective and from a media perspective. And do I make a ton of money with my rates? No. But do I still get value? And I go, yes. That's the value for it. It's not the money, which ultimately does pay bills, but it's the value of working with all of these individuals every single day and every single minute of every single day. And that's the appreciation I get for it. That mutual respect, that value add, that legitimacy, all of that. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, Mickey, that's what, the DNA here is, that on the cusp is literally around that. And those are the kinds of people we want to, surround ourselves with. And like making money is a byproduct of what you do, but anybody can do whatever that is. But what you've highlighted along the way in this whole episode is, what does that look like, feel like, sound like? What is the integrity and the commitment and the quality of those relationships, and the care and the compassion, the sympathy, the empathy, the, working the extra hours to help, somebody get their ball across the goal line, and helping and assisting and pulling somebody up, elevating, and them being able to get something that, they feel might get rejected as a piece of work. And you play a large part of that. You're that piece in the puzzle, a creative edge. and helping people soar. And that's what I get out of everything that I spend time with you on the show. And I thank you for, and I use the word DNA a lot because it's just an easy way for people to connect that whatever it is that you're made of, you're made of. And I know that I never have to say anything like, oh, don't ever change, Mickey, because I know I don't have to say that because your DNA is galvanized. It's adamantium steel to in your body to, pull off the comic thing. So, so I thank you for enlightening me, enlightening the audience. And for anybody who's watching this video and who is, at all tinkering or entertaining and doing a book, where to find Mickey Mikkelson from Creative Edge. You can find him easily through my Facebook. You can find him on your, I don't have the link for your website, but you can always provide that as a comment too after in the thread of comments. Yeah. So if you're in the best hands possible for sure. If there's any questions, I'm going to leave it there for now. So if there's any questions, please feel free to do so. And it's okay if you don't. You can always reach out to either myself or Mickey, privately, personally. That works too. So what's the weather like there while we're waiting to see if there's any questions? What's the weather like right there?
And where I'm at, it's pretty nice out, actually. I was expecting it to be like majorly cold, but not yet. So. But I know it's coming, so.
Yeah. So I don't miss that. I would,
you would know, right?
I would be at YVR enjoying, 14, 15 degree weather in February. And okay, I'll finish the story. There's a question. And I would be, landing in some part of Saskatchewan, whether it's Regina or Saskatoon, waiting to be picked up by Mickey. Step out of the airport and it's minus 39.
Yeah, and he's wearing shorts.
Freaking hell. Jeez. Anyway, good times. We had a lot of those. So here's a question real quick. How long have you been doing this, Mickey? Is this still part-time or full-time? Okay, you touch on that, but
for sure. Over 5 years in total doing this. We've been full-time since September of 2019. We went from 45 clients in September to over 84 within 3 months of that. And the majority of those are still with me today.
Brand loyalty. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question, Roger. Thanks for the answer, Mickey.
Yeah.
And Kyle's an interesting fellow. If you're still watching, Kyle, I would love to have you as a guest on the cusp. Let's say you're on my list. My friend, you're on my list. What you do is fascinating to me. And again, old, long-standing relationships. This is cool. So if there's no more questions, anytime. Yeah, buddy. Okay. So I'll be in touch. So, Mickey, you're a gem, buddy.
No, thank you so much. It's good to see you. And thanks
Likewise.
It's good.
I'm always a phone call away. We chat on occasion. So thank you very much for everybody tuning in, and be happy, be safe, chase what, makes you whole is the way I want to put it, because you deserve it. You're worth it. And just gosh darn, it's the right thing to do. So we're going to sign off. Till next time, next weekend, we're going to have a panel of people. We're going to be chatting around accountability and leadership, specifically what it means to lead yourself, because one can't dare dream of leading others, even one person, if you don't have your own poop in a group, is what we're going to be talking about. So anyway, Mickey, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And we'll chat soon. Bye, everyone.